morning. And welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, as always, and very proudly broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We have so much to cover. What did you think about J.D. Vance? We also have the new star of the Republican Party, Donald Trump's granddaughter. We'll be talking about that as well. A little bit later on in the 6 o'clock hour, we'll be talking with Sylvia. If you're new to the program, when the show first kicked off, we talked about, a couple months in probably, but ASSE.com, which is an international exchange program. And we had one of the students on, Sylvia. And through the year and a half, a little over a year and a half, we've been on the program here on TV. We've got to know Sylvia and watch her grow up, and she is back in Italy. Well, guess what? She's visiting. So we're going to have her in the studio and see how things are going with Sylvia. So that's a little bit later on. We'll be taking your comments, as always, starting with a few that I received after yesterday's program. First of all, hello, Frank. Hello. I personally was not aware Biden had COVID. Curious that he could have contacted it at this time of the year. And more telling, as his own party is calling for him to drop out of the race. Now, this came at a time when the news was just breaking about Biden having COVID. There's a few things about what you said there that is very fascinating that we're going to get to more in depth later on. But Joy Reid at MSNBC suggesting or relating Biden contracting COVID, is the same as the assassination attempt on Trump. Not making that up. Yes, I am paraphrasing, but we'll quote it later on. But the gist of her argument is they're the same. And just to add insult to injury, she decided to call those few seconds while Trump took the photo a photo op. That it was nothing more than a photo op. Also, though, on the other side of the coin, though, the same political party, Van Jones saying that it shows the strength of Trump surviving that assassination attempt, going to the convention, and yet Biden is now locked away because of COVID. We're going to talk about that in depth, but it is very interesting what that means at a time, to this viewer's point, at a time when even Biden himself said if doctors were to tell him he had a medical issue, he would step down. Obviously, and again, I don't want to give everything away that we'll be talking about, but you had Adam Schiff yesterday, which I'm not really sure, other than he adds to the numbers, pads the numbers, gets it to 21, Democrats calling for Biden to step aside. I don't really see Adam Schiff as a power player. Now, I know he's running for Senate. I understand that. Running against Steve Garvey, baseball player. But what is Adam Schiff known for other than fabricating a lot of things during the Trump administration and saying that he was an expert on, was it Russia collusion? And so many of the things that he said were proven to be wrong or outright lies. So I'm not really sure if it's a name factor there or if it's just another number to add to another Democrat to add to the numbers. But Nancy Pelosi, you're starting to get the behind closed doors, anonymous sources saying that Pelosi's calling him to step aside, Schumer, and they're not denying that it was said necessarily, a non-denial denial type of idea. But when you start to see those leak, you can read the writing on the wall for Biden. So I'd love your thoughts on that. Do you think Biden steps aside? Next comment from a viewer after yesterday's program. Hoping people finally realize that Trump was right about everything. His campaign based on truth and justice, while this Biden regime is based on lies and propaganda. Thank you very much for those comments. I just saw this one come in right as we kicked off the show. Love J.D. Vance. Still thinking Vance has the charisma of Ronald Reagan and the attitude of Trump. The perfect blend. Wow, thank you very much. Yeah, what a speech. Really a speech to introduce himself to the masses. Some polling suggested that he was relatively unknown to those that weren't political observers. We're going to talk about that. But just to show you a little bit of what we're dealing with here, this is coming from CNN. This is this is something for Joe Biden and his campaign to consider. Coming from CNN. Trump triumphant as Biden descends into a deepening crisis. Donald Trump will pull off his greatest feat yet as Joe Biden confronts his darkest hour, says Stephen Collinson. The ex-president will accept the Republican nomination today, advancing one of the most stunning comebacks in political history after his bid to steal the 2020 election. Remember, it is still CNN. An unprecedented criminal conviction and an assassination attempt. Biden is meanwhile being rocked by a Democratic rebellion. Oh, also as an update from yesterday, I'm kind of surprised by this. They are slowing down the speeding up of the nomination. They were going to do the virtual roll call to get Biden the nomination early, kind of quell this talk to have him resign or to step down from the campaign. And they originally were talking about voting on it as early as next week. They have moved it because there has been so much outcry. And I think the earliest they could vote on it now is August 1st. But I'm going to continue here. Concerns about whether he can defeat Trump have boiled back up amid lawmakers' concerns about his health and cognitive state and despair over his chances of blocking the extreme possibilities of a second Trump term. Sources told CNN Wednesday that former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi recently told the president that polls show he can't beat Trump and could crush Democratic hopes of winning the House if he stays in the race. Now, again, it all boils down, I don't have to keep reiterating this point, it all boils down to what Biden decides. Biden is the only one that gets to decide whether or not he stays in. Now, some are saying, again, these are anonymous sources, take them with as many grains of salt as you possibly can. But some are saying he's being a little more receptive, which may signal why during that interview with BET, he said if there was a medical reason. Now, I don't know if COVID would be that medical reason. Right now, they're saying he had mild symptoms. I don't know, unless they could use COVID and long-term COVID as some type of medical issue. I can see Biden being defiant, but, we had almost a week where we were still checking the news constantly, but it wasn't to see whether or not Biden was still going to be in the race. It was to see how Trump was doing after the assassination attempt, these type of things, who the VP was going to be. So it's a really... You could almost argue that it's more charged, these calls for Biden to step aside, than they were even a week or two ago. What makes it, well, it's all very fascinating to watch because we're witnessing history in real time. But to see the names behind closed doors calling for it. But again, the fascinating part is what ultimately Biden decides. He is, and this again, anonymous sources, Pelosi says the polls aren't good. He refutes that by saying, the polls I'm seeing show we win. So I don't know if family members, his advisors, aren't telling him the actual polls. I don't know if Nancy Pelosi's polls are wrong and his are right. It just, he still seems to be defiant. So at the end of the day, I don't obviously have an answer for you, or if I did, the show would be international, not just national, if I had those answers. But I'm going to continue with what Stephen Collinson had to say. A White House race that slumbered for months has suddenly erupted over these last 3 weeks, bookend by Biden's cataclysmic, that's a new time, I haven't heard that one used before, a new term, cataclysmic debate performance and the attempted assassination of Trump, a whiplash of events unseen in half a century. It has been an amazing month, hasn't it? I don't know. I don't know what you think if you're in the Biden campaign. The 45th president's comeback. Well, also I'd add, he tried to quell these concerns by giving a lot more media, press conferences, just media hits in general. And that's only made matters worse. I mean, I guess if you were conspiratorial, you'd say maybe the COVID gives him an opportunity to step away from the limelight for a while, kind of run like he did back in 2020 from the basement and take a breather, because he has been, compared to his normal schedule, very, very busy. So these are some of the things that Stephen Collinson highlights. Events play into Trump's election strategy. In a race Trump has cast as a contrast between strength and weakness, the optics are better than the Republican could have dared hope less than 4 months before Election Day. Do you remember when Labor Day was really the kickoff to major election news? I know conventions really kicked it off, but this is wild. Republicans are lionizing a nominee who escaped a would-be assassin's bullet and rose bloodied to raise his fist with a vow to fight. That second when he did that, those few seconds where he did that, Joy Reid from MSNBC calling it a photo op. Biden, by comparison, retreated from the campaign trail yesterday to his Delaware home with a case of COVID-19. Trump just choreographed one of the most remarkable shows of dominance in any political party of the modern age, requiring his vanquished primary foes to pledge their loyalty to him in front of a primetime television audience. Biden is meanwhile losing control of his party, clashing heatedly with lawmakers who warn he'll cost him the White House, Senate, and the House as party grandees like Adam Schiff publicly say he should step aside. The optics are remarkable. I think there's no doubt. There are other takeaways, if you will, Collinson. Again, I like to mention, because I read an article today suggesting that MAGA people, Trump supporters, that they are in a media bubble, which I think is ironic to say when you see someone on the left say, obviously a media bubble, because they all use the same talking points. But their argument was that Trump loyalist is a term they often use, but Trump surrogates are only going on friendly outlets. Well, that's because that's really the only place they're allowed. MSNBC isn't going to invite, you name it, whoever, Don Jr. to speak, or if they do, it's just to shout him down. But anyway, I got on a little tangent there. Biden's hold on the Democratic nomination appears to have weakened, says Stephen Collinson. Yes, these last few days have not been good for the former president. We're going to talk so much more about that, but I want to hear your takeaways. I know I'm going to read other outlets' takeaways. I want to hear what you thought about last night's convention, day 3 of the Republican National Convention. J.D. Vance introducing himself to the world on that stage, his wife as well. And we got to see the new star of the Republican Party, Donald Trump's granddaughter. So we're going to talk about that and much more. We're just getting started, and in a little bit, Sylvia and Elisa will be joining us for a quick interview just to catch up with Sylvia, who's been along for the ride on this show for almost from the very beginning. I'll have to look at maybe when the first airing was with Sylvia. It's remarkable to see the changes and how confident she is, because in full disclosure, I pre-recorded. So that's coming up in a little bit. Stay with us. Keep those comments coming in. What do you think of JD? What did you think of the third night of the RNC? What do you think of Biden's chances of being on the ballot in November? Lots of questions posed to you this morning. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. So stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. So glad that you've joined us on this amazing morning. I just, every day is so historic with what we can talk about. It's so much fun to have you a part of along for the ride with this show. Here's a comment from a viewer. Biden's done, as his strings were cut yesterday by Schumer as a puppet. Just a white flag surrender to come. It does seem, we had said originally when the debate performance was over and there was starting to be rumblings that they wanted Biden out, we said it would take a few people. Nancy Pelosi, an Obama, a Chuck Schumer, the big names. And so far we've heard, again, it was behind closed doors, but we've heard from Schumer and Pelosi that they want him to go. Obama, a little bit more an end run around by allowing George Clooney to release that op-ed. So, yeah, things don't look good for the president. One article suggesting that he went from saying Kamala can't win to could Kamala win? So let's go back to the RNC. Again, what did you think? According to CNN, the takeaways were Vance introduces himself and, while doing so, hits Biden. That's fair. Had some really good lines in there. We got to learn about his wife, and she did a good job of what they say, putting a softer edge on him. When JD met me, he approached our differences with curiosity and enthusiasm, she said. That JD and I could meet it all, let alone fall in love and marry, is a testament to this great country. Another takeaway, the Gold Star families lambast Biden's Afghanistan withdrawal, which is an important message because it's a message the media has refused really to talk about since that disaster happened. Oh, and then we might get to this later, the GOP senators that confronted the Secret Service director. Whew. And they're suggesting that Doug Burgum, his speech yesterday was an audition to be energy secretary. All right, but let's talk about the real star of the show. Former President Donald Trump's 17-year-old granddaughter, Kay Madison. What a great few lines that she had in there. She wanted Americans to know the side of my grandpa that people don't often see. Now, this was what they're saying is was an unscheduled addition to the speaker's lineup. Isn't that interesting? Well, if it was unscheduled, what an amazing job that she did. She said to me, he's just a normal grandpa. He gives us candy and soda. And that's funny. He doesn't have the reputation for... Anyway, he gives us candy and soda when our parents aren't looking. He always wants to know how we're doing in school. When I made the high honor roll, he printed it out to show his friends how proud he was of me. Isn't that nice? And this is the kind of thing that I think is very important for Trump. And it happened back in 2016 as well. It was something the media wouldn't really focus on, but as they try to demonize him, meaning Trump, they never really focused on the human side of Trump that we heard about well before he ran for president. But I'll continue. She said, he calls me during the middle of the school day to ask how my golf game is going and tells me all about his. But then I have to remind him that I'm in school and I'll have to call him back later. It looked like the former president was really enjoying the speech. He smiled as she spoke. When we play golf together, I'm not on his team. He'll try to get inside my head, and he's always surprised I don't let him get to me. But I have to remind him I'm a Trump too. Even when he's going through all these court cases, he's always asking me how I'm doing. He always encourages me to push myself to be the most successful person I can be. Obviously, he set the bar pretty high, but who knows? Maybe one day I will catch him. And that's a good line. That's a good line. On Saturday, she said, I was shocked when I heard that he had been shot. I just wanted to know if he was okay. It was heartbreaking that someone could do that to another person. A lot of people have put my grandpa through hell, and he's still standing. Grandpa, you are such an inspiration, and I love you. The media makes my grandpa seem like a different person, but I know who he is. He's very caring and loving. He truly wants the best for this country, and he will fight every single day to make America great again. What a... if that was unscheduled, in the future, schedule more like those. That was so many people talking about that this morning, and the people that watch that getting to see the human side. And, if you're watching the MSNBCs of the world, you're watching the CNNs, you don't know that side. I mean, look, they didn't even consider that a takeaway at CNN. So it's nice to get that message out. She did a wonderful job. We've got another comment from a viewer. Wonderful last night. I agree. The Gold Star families, there was not a dry eye. And the granddaughter makes all of today's grandparents proud. Yes, that's that. Now, those are the takeaways. Forget what CNN has to say. Those are the real takeaways. And JD, I think, really showing who he was, getting his message out there. As Deanna Glebova from New York Post put it, J.D. Vance delivers soul-stirring first remarks as Trump's VP. It was a powerful speech. Many who, and again, it's not knocking anybody who wasn't overly familiar with J.D. Vance. I don't think that's anything to be ashamed of. I mean, he's a senator from Ohio, so unless you're from Ohio, you don't know a ton. But many people knowing through that book that he is very eloquent, gives a good speech. His speech echoed the story he describes in Hillbilly Elegy, the best-selling book that brought him to fame back in 2016. He contrasted his age with President Biden's long experience in politics, describing how the 81-year-old career politician impacted small towns like his with his policies that led to jobs being, quote, sent overseas and children being sent to war. Joe Biden screwed up and my community paid the price. Biden has been a politician longer than he's been alive. Think about that. Longer than he's been alive. It's true. Young man, 39 years old. I think to anybody that was on the fence, or I don't mean anybody, but a Trump supporter who's on the fence, not knowing a lot about J.D. Vance, maybe saying, is this the right pick? Is this the wrong pick? I think he definitely relieved some of those fears for many last night. My fellow Americans, my name is J.D. Vance from the great state of Ohio. Tonight is a night of hope. a celebration of what America once was, and with God's grace, what it will soon be again. And it is a reminder of the sacred duty that we have to preserve the American experiment, to choose a new path for our children and grandchildren. Vance said Trump's response to the shooting, when he stood up and raised his fist in the air, was to call Americans to something higher and a call for true unity. The senator said he, too, wants to answer that call to unity in accepting the VP nomination. Vance gave a shout-out to his grandmother, Mama, who raised him from a young age and saved him from the addiction-filled poverty he could have been subjected to. Yeah, what a nice, touching moment there. So many moving parts of that speech, like they said, soul-stirring. He praised his mom's strength in overcoming her addiction. He said the moment is not just about him, but it's about the auto workers in Michigan, wondering why out-of-touch politicians are destroying your jobs. It's about the factory workers in Wisconsin who makes things with their hands and is proud of American craftsmanship. It's about the energy worker in Pennsylvania and Ohio who doesn't understand why Joe Biden is willing to buy energy from tin pot dictators, but not hardworking Americans right here at home. And again, about his mom being 10 years clean and sober, saying, "I love you, Mom." And then he said, oh, there's a lot here. Wow. I don't want to fall into the trap of reading his whole speech, because you saw it. But so many takeaways, so many moving pieces to his speech that I think is very effective, especially right out the gate. Man, the pressure on him. And it does show what we'll be dealing with if there is a VP debate. But you know what's interesting? The Trump campaign has not agreed to a vice presidential debate because they say they don't know who the vice president is going to be yet. Meaning, is Biden going to stay? So it's a dig at Biden, but meaning, will Biden be there at the end of the day? So your thoughts on last night's speech by J.D. Vance. We do have some comments coming in. And we can talk more about it in depth. Like I said, I don't want to fall into the trap because I sometimes do that, just reading his speech. One of the ways the media, well, we'll talk about, when we come back, we'll talk about how the media is trying to spin it, what they are going to paint J.D. Vance as. We've already seen it a little bit, that he was once a Trump hater and he hated MAGA supporters. And then they're trying to say he's extreme, or as Biden's campaign said yesterday, again, showing that they don't want to tamp down the rhetoric, saying that he could be maybe even more extreme than Trump. So obviously have not learned their lesson in tamping down the rhetoric, not fanning the flames. So we'll tell you a little bit about what the media is saying about him. But most importantly, I want to hear what you have to say about yesterday's Republican National Convention, Day 3, and about J.D. Vance's speech. But we got to take a break. Stay with us. Our beautiful view overlooking Market Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you for joining us. A couple comments from viewers. If Kamala Harris watched J.D. Vance speak, she should be afraid to debate him. Well, as I mentioned, the Trump campaign is refusing to schedule a VP debate. We don't know who the Democratic nominee for vice president is going to be, so we can't lock in a date before the convention. To do so would be unfair to Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, Gretchen Whitmer, or whoever Kamala Harris picks as her running mate. All right. Another comment from a viewer. I'm thinking Trump changed his mind on his VP pick from Rubio to Vance after the shooting. Good choice. I would tend to agree, and I asked that question yesterday. Do you think that the assassination attempt changed his mind? Because one viewer had said early on in the week that the J.D. Vance pick proved that Trump's going to do things his way in the second term. And I think there's something to that Rubio was kind of the, for lack of a better term, safe bet, bringing in those Nikki Haley type people, you know, who the media and the consulting class of the Republican Party thought should be the pick, probably Rubio or Burgum. And I think Trump said enough. He knows in his gut what it takes to win, and in his mind, it's J.D. Vance. I would tend to agree with what you have to say there. Now, how they're spinning J.D. Vance is bizarre beliefs and creepy friends. Choosing J.D. Vance could be a costly mistake for Trump. This is because Trump's two other reported finalists for the job, Burgum and Rubio each boasted positive qualities that could have shored up the former president's known weaknesses. Vance, on the other hand, could end up being a big, showy misstep. This is coming from The Independent. In an era where personalities are often more important than policies to a critical mass of voters, operatives more attuned to the Vance's personal attributes are also licking their lips at a chance to sink their teeth into what they see as an ample-sized target. The thinking from some of these outside groups is that Vance, although undoubtedly accomplished, is also fundamentally unlikable. One person involved in an anti-Trump political committee told The Independent that voters can expect to see significant opposition research deployed against Vance to paint him as too blanking weird. Vance, they said, will be an easy target for caricature as an out-of-touch, awkward, fleece vest tech pro with bizarre beliefs and creepy friends. That will be the direction they had, so he'll be more extreme than Trump because, again, no need to calm down the rhetoric after the assassination attempt. More extreme than Trump. They'll say he's a Trump clone. Now they'll say he's kind of a tech bro, creepy. I'm telling you this to prepare you. We're giving all sides of what we are hearing. Now, well, how am I doing on time? I don't want to run late because we are going to talk to Sylvia here in just a little bit. But according to A.G. Gankarski, J.D. Vance's RNC speech shows Trump's Republican Party stands for the forgotten men and women. I remember how powerful that was when Trump would talk about that back in 2016. He doubled down on that dedication to the forgotten men and women with his vice presidential pick. J.D. Vance, who wears his Kentucky coal country roots on his sleeve, introduced themselves to Americans nearly a decade ago with Hillbilly Elegy, as we've mentioned. Have you read Hillbilly Elegy? In full disclosure, I have not. I plan on it. I plan on being one of the many that have now boosted it to Amazon's #1 selling book. I plan on that very soon. But he talked about his mama, his grandma. He talked about his roots. It was a powerful speech. This was made most obvious by his extolling of Trump throughout the speech as an antidote to the political establishment. And in a sense, Vance necessarily as an adjunct of the presidential nominee. But in another sense, he can take Trumpism and the American First Movement to places it wouldn't have been able to go without any other logical heir apparent, including the vindication of those working men and women in forgotten communities, hillbillies and otherwise, left behind by the corporatists like the incumbent president. I do think it's going to be very interesting to see if they try to paint him as kind of this hillbilly and rube, because that's what they think of most MAGA supporters. We see it with the disdain in the media and from politicians. So is that the direction that they'll head? Because I don't think that helps. That just shores up some people that were on the fence over Trump, saying, why do they have such a disdain for us? There's a lot. There is a lot there. Oh, by the way, no, got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. Let's get right to it. A couple comments from viewers. Frank, did you see the blip last night about FBI and DHS warning about retaliation from Trump supporters in reaction to the attempt on Trump? They're projecting their violent actions upon good conservatives and Trump supporters. Well, we've seen right from the beginning the blame being put on Trump supporters and Trump himself for his quote-unquote rhetoric. As a matter of fact, Biden, with his interview with Lester Holt, insinuating the same thing, that Trump led to this, the victim, we talked about it all day on Monday, but the victim blaming. So it comes as no surprise. Now they will take on and tarnish the names of Trump supporters and, of course, Trump. So, I didn't see that exact blip, but it does not surprise me. Another comment. Marco was told first he wasn't going to be VP. I don't know. Does that mean in the time frame, in the timeline? You knew media would expand their target to include JD, of course. His wife is part of the pick. One of the best speakers. Yeah, she did give a really good speech, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from her, because I think there's an opportunity, because she had quick time slot yesterday, really, for her to expand on her and JD's relationship and kind of a look inside the more personal aspects of JD Vance. One of the best speakers, JD's wife, that is. Speech was personal, articulate, and funny. I agree. I think it was a very effective speech, and that's why I'm saying I'm looking forward to seeing more from her. Moving along here, Biden's campaign said that the crime victims of, was that night number 2? That was night number 2, right? Yes, the crime victims were politicizing their losses. Again, no one calls out them for their rhetoric, but Quentin Fulks, Biden's deputy campaign manager, told a crowd in Milwaukee that victims of illegal immigration, crime, and fentanyl poisoning are politicizing the losses of their loved ones at the RNC. This is the exact quote. I wanted to kick things off this morning by responding to a few outrageous things that happened last night. What you heard was transparent politicizing of tragic loss of American families and absolutely nothing to honor their losses with action. I think one of the reasons they're so upset about this and so angry is how effective is it, for instance, with Rachel Morin's brother saying, we never got any call from Biden. He never called us. He never reached out to us. But former President Trump did, and he offered his grievances, and you could tell that he was saddened. So again, it's very much like when they're attacking Trump right now. It's the victim blaming. That the people who lost loved ones, whether it be because of the open porous borders under the Biden administration, whether it's because of the increase in crime, whether it's because of fentanyl, which is another major issue to deal with, because of the open porous border, that those people, the lost loved ones, they're just politicizing that loss. Okay. Oh, we got some waves coming in. Excuse me. So now moving away, but I don't want to completely shift gears. We just have so much to talk about this morning, and we do have to catch up with Sylvia and Elisa regarding ASSE.com International Exchange Program. Tomorrow we have so many guests because I've had to push some things off because of the news this week, especially on Monday and Tuesday. We're going to have so many guests. One guest tomorrow, but so many guests next week as well, and I'll try to highlight those for you a little bit later on in the show when I have my calendar in front of me. But the DNC, as I mentioned at the top of the show, they are slowing down the nomination of Joe Biden. Originally, we learned that they were going to try to speed it up even quicker, that he could have been nominated by the virtual roll call as early as next week. Now, because there has been so much backlash against Biden as of late, the last few days, with rumors that Pelosi told him to step down, Schumer, that they're saying, okay, let's put a little bit of a hold on this, and now it looks like the vote won't come until August 1st. But we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from Sylvia from ASSE.com. Sylvia, I'm sorry. That's the break after. I spoke too soon. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Virtual waves coming in like mad. Thank you very much. So they have slowed down the nomination process. I did realize that mathematically I'm not doing that great. I should probably put myself back up on the screen. How's that? Not doing that great because we do have to get to Sylvia, and then we may run into the very, very top of the second hour. But with Adam Schiff's declaration that he believes, and I don't think maybe Adam Schiff has that much kind of power. I think it's more about a numbers game because that makes him number 21. But that started the snowball rolling yet again to oust the president. Reports are that he's a little more receptive to that. And now we know that he has COVID, where interestingly enough, earlier in the week, he recorded an interview where he said if a medical issue came up, that he would step aside if doctors told him he needed to, which also signals that he's starting to loosen up. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from Sylvia and Elisa with ASSE.com. Then we're going to get back in the nitty gritty. We have a lot to talk about. As I mentioned, what do you think about Joy Reid comparing Joe Biden at his advanced age getting COVID to the assassination attempt on former President Trump? Also, We're going to talk. I don't want to give away everything we're talking to because then I'm going to run late. Stay with us. We got Sylvia coming up next. Then a lot more politics. This has been such a busy week. It's kind of tough to place interviews in, but some of these are necessary time-wise and because I want to have them on the show. So I know it's kind of difficult to go from the RNC to will Biden stay in to an interview about international exchange students, but the show tomorrow is going to be the same way. So just prepare. There's going to be a lot of interviews that are maybe not on the exact topic of the day, but are still very important. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, Sylvia, coming up next. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and this is the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of the program. And guess who's in town? Sylvia, welcome back.
Hi.
She's back.
Yeah, it's good to see you in the studio.
Yay.
Last time you were in Zoom in Italy. Now you are actually in studio, live in studio. How's the trip been so far?
Really good, yeah. Yeah, I'm being honest.
Yeah. So the trip itself, though, getting to see Elise, of course, has been fun.
What?
Yeah, that's okay. Getting to see Elise has been fun. How was it traveling?
Really bad. I mean, it was fine until JFK, and then my second flight got cancelled because of, I think, the storm. Yeah. But it's always that flight from JFK to Ithaca. So...
You've always had trouble with that.
Every single time.
You just expect it? You just expect it?
Yeah, because when my sister came, like everything went fine.
That's right.
Yeah.
How's your family doing?
Really good.
Oh, good. We're going to talk about school. We're going to talk all about that, catch up. First of all, though, while you were here, did you get to see the cardboard boat regatta? You did good.
What's that?
Oh, you didn't show her the cardboard?
No, I haven't even seen the recording.
Yeah. Well, we saw it, but yeah.
Right. I haven't seen the recording back.
I think it went good this year.
Yeah, it was good. I'll show you later.
Yeah.
So what do you have planned for the trip?
We are like going hiking next.
Yep. After this, actually, this morning.
And then kayaking.
Yeah, tomorrow.
And yeah, just like meeting my friends, doing stuff with them.
Have you got to see your friends so far?
Yeah.
Oh, how's that feel?
Really good. Like we went to Ithaca yesterday, and then just hanging out. That was fun.
Because you've done a really good job of staying in touch with everybody, right?
Oh,
yeah, like video calls and messages. Yeah.
We talk every day.
Oh,
so it's nice that they're back together.
Yeah, finally.
Because I think we talked about this before. There's not that big of a time difference, right?
6 hours.
So I mean, you can make it work, kind of.
Yeah.
When you got home, what was it that you missed the most? Not the people. We know the people are going to be the answer, but like, what did you miss the most that maybe surprised you?
Well, the food.
Yeah, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, because I know it's a big thing. Like for me, like being used to that food, which is healthier, maybe. Yeah, it's a big difference. And I was happy to be back on the Italian food. And then, like you said, the people, of course. But yeah, I was back like during summer. But like when I started school, everything was different because, school is really different. But I got to finish my high school there.
So I was going to ask, so now you're finishing up, or you've just finished up?
Done.
Oh, how was graduation?
It was hard, but
yeah,
I was at like just 2 weeks ago. So I've been studying like all the month of June, day and night. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
So their graduation is just like basically testing.
Yeah, like you study like all the year, and then you have like 3 exams by the end of the year, and they're really challenging.
Yeah.
And the last one is the speaking test, which is like the most difficult part. But it went really good, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Like if they fail that, even though they did well, like they could do well all school year. If they failed one of those tests, they have to redo the grade.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's
so there's a
intense.
lot of pressure.
Yes.
Yeah.
She had a friend, a classmate that happened to.
Yeah.
How
was
sick would
sad.
that make you?
Yeah.
Jeez,
It's really sad because you have to start over with a new class because we have the same class like the whole year. We don't change classes, so that's bad.
I would be so nervous.
Yes.
That's why you studied so hard, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you did really good.
Yeah.
You can
I
kind
was
of tell.
happy.
You're not going to say exactly how good you did.
I can, but you want to know.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Yeah. Like and the fun part is like they give you like a picture that you have to comment for the speaking test, and mine was actually in English. So
Perfect.
I was like so happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you have a big ceremony like we do here? So
I don't care.
No?
Like,
You're just supposed to do it, right? You're
Um,
supposed to graduate.
yeah, like that's what you have to do, and then you celebrate by yourself. Like I brought like a bottle of champagne, and I just open it.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
So let's get this out of the way then. You're talking about drinking champagne. People just saw it on camera. You now have tattoos. Where did
we've got our tattoos.
Where did Elisa go wrong? What part of the trip was it that last year that you realized
It's all gone downhill.
she's listening to rock and roll music? And anyway,
Partying all night
I know,
now.
partying all night.
Her fault.
Was it hard to adjust when you got back? Like like you said, the studying, you have to do so much studying, maybe a little bit different than you do in the States.
Yeah, I mean everything was the same. Like even here when I just came back, everything was the same. I think I'm just more like responsible, so that's the biggest difference. And yeah, studying was like harder, and having to catch up all the program. But I'm pretty like proud of myself.
Of course,
for,
you should be.
Yeah. So yeah, and then I started like new sports. Started kickboxing,
Yeah,
like I
heard.
said.
Yeah.
And that was fun. And then I started again dance.
Oh, okay.
So I got to do like theater shows, and I started like singing for the schools, things that
She never would have done.
No, you
yeah,
would have never done
before,
that.
Yeah.
no.
Is that all because you think of
Yeah,
your time here?
Definitely,
Yeah.
yeah.
How was kickboxing?
It was fun,
Yeah.
but yeah, I had like it was far from my house, so I had to stop at some point. But that was really fun because my dad used to do
They
kickboxing
would practice together.
together.
Oh, isn't
yeah,
that nice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still do. So
Yeah.
So what's next? So you graduated. What's next?
so I'm gonna start university in the middle of August in the Netherlands.
Oh, nice.
So I applied for that and I got accepted. So that was good. And the course is called Creative Business, which
Okay.
is like marketing, kind of marketing, but with a bit of creative. So it's not just theory. You get to create things like projects, and I'm gonna use like my graphic design skills that
Yeah.
that's my passion. So.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about ASSE.com. You may recall Sylvia was on the show, and Lisa, of course, in the past, numerous times. So there's the website, ASSE.com. So you, Sylvia, you really don't have a lot of time off between graduation and when school starts.
No, like this summer is gonna go by really
Yeah.
fast. Yeah,
So you had all of junior in school, and then you have to start back up in August?
yeah.
Wow, that's too bad. But at least you made it
I
to the
know.
United
She's
States.
fitting a lot into
Yeah.
a short amount
Yeah,
of
but I'm
time.
excited to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really excited. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned, I think last time when you were on the program, university there is a little different than here. It's not like I'm going to Harvard or I'm going to Yale. There, it's just you want to go to that school because it's better for your major?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I purposely not choose to go to study in Italy because I want to study in English still, because you have to practice it. I feel like I already lost a little like English, not speaking it
I was
like
gonna
every
ask,
day.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's the main reason I want to go to the Netherlands. But yeah, like the Netherlands has the best schools for graphic design and
Gotcha.
what I want to study. So yeah, I mean, I chose the best school for what I was looking for. Yeah.
Do you have any friends or family in the Netherlands, or are you going to be on your own?
My sister is studying there, but she's gonna be 2 hours and a half away from me. But I get to see her more than what I did like this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's on her first year already, and there is like train stations there, so it's gonna be easy to
Yeah, she'll
see each other. Yeah. So
Because your traveling history is very good.
that's-
So,
but
She's
yeah.
a pro now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, her confidence in traveling, it's almost a good thing that you've had so many challenges, because I
True.
feel like now you could handle anything.
Yeah, like,
Especially by yourself.
I'm like ready for anything. Really.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
time when she landed, I had already known that the flight got canceled, and she called me. I go, I know, and she goes, yes. Like we just knew,
just,
Yeah.
and we're like, okay, we got to figure this out.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. I mean,
I know the last time we talked when you were in studio, it kept coming up that you had changed so much, and you kind of mentioned it in this interview. Did your friends and family feel that way when you got home?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like my family in particular, they said that I'm much more like confident and yeah. So and more like I want to try new things every time. Like they saw that, and I'm happy because that was my goal.
They must have been very proud of your change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah. And yeah, like it's always like new experiences always makes me like grow a little, and yeah, and being alone especially like I have to handle things by myself. That's like I think why I'm changing.
Very independent.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about this before, but when you got home, what did your friends think of your whole experience?
Well, they're like jealous in a good way.
Yeah, in a
good
I mean,
way. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, like I was really lucky to be with her and got to experience so many things in just 1 year. So yeah, like and I traveled a lot, like in California. Oh, sorry,
Okay.
California, and North Carolina, and so I got to see not just New York, but other like states, and yeah, like I tried new classes that I can study like in Italy usually, so that like they said
Someone must be at my house. That's what it is.
A lot of new experiences for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are you happy with this trip that it is going to be more low key? Because it seems like in the past when you were doing something constantly, right? So is it kind of nice to just to go on a hike and just
Oh,
to kayak? Yeah.
like I mean it was good to be like at school and having like to see like my friends there every day, but like that takes a lot from your day, like from 8 to 3,
Right.
I think, and
Yeah.
then there's practice, like so I didn't really get to see her like whole day, but now I can, and
And you
so
didn't
it's
get to
nice.
experience summer here, really.
Yeah,
Because you
right.
came in the fall when school started and you went home July 3rd. So now she gets to experience this area during the summertime. And it's nice because when she came back, we just fell back into our
Oh, I'm
life.
sure.
It didn't feel like, and we've got a lot of things that we want to do that we're doing, but we're just kind of taking it day by day. It's very relaxed. It's like,
Yeah,
okay.
and I love it. Like
Yeah.
I don't need big plans. I
Yeah.
just need to be with her and my
Yeah.
friends.
No helicopter rides.
No,
I mean, if it happens, it
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
did Elisa keep your room completely untouched? Was it kind of
yeah, It
weird?
was the same.
Pretty
It was-
much.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It felt really good
Yeah.
to be back.
So before we go, what are you looking forward to the most on this trip? Just hanging out with Elisa?
Yeah, like spending time with her, with the puppies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and her
Like,
girlfriend, Tate, her friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we have found just being like on the couch and watching shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
All the normal
like we
stuff.
used to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably it's always going too quick. I know. I feel bad because I realize it's coming up very soon. Are you guys planning other trips in the future? Obviously, you're going to come
Yeah,
visit.
we
back
want
and
to.
forth.
We've got to figure all that stuff out. I want to come back down. I might even come during one of the holidays. I want to see her in school.
Oh yeah.
Like I'd love to make a trip to the
That would be neat.
Netherlands. There's so many things that we want to do. We've talked about going to Paris together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause
There's so much.
Were you surprised because you never did get to see summer how hot it's been here?
my what?
It's been so hot here. Does that surprise
Oh
you?
no, that it's pretty much the same in
Yeah.
Italy too. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
But when I came, there was like that storm, so I was worried it's gonna be like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
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 Well, I think that's about it. Lisa, before we go, let me put that back up on the screen. ASSE.com. What would you tell people that are thinking about getting involved in ASSE.com because this has been so successful for you?
Yeah, so they actually asked if I wanted to host another student, and unfortunately, I don't have the time to do that right now. I'm focusing on other things, and my work is really busy, and you really have to be committed. But if you're thinking or considering, reach out to me. Actually, I can give you my contact information because I am an area rep now.
Yeah.
So if there is somebody who is interested in even just talking about what that might look like, I would love to chat with you. There's a lot of students from all over the world, not just Italy, but other countries, boys and girls, and they are looking to come here, and we are looking to place a ton of students before the next school year. So I'd love to talk with whoever it is, and then I can kind of give them a rundown of what the program entails, what they would be responsible for, how to choose a student.
Sure.
But it is the most rewarding thing I have ever done. Like, I can't imagine Sylvia and her family not in my life. I might cry.
I'm crying.
But seriously, it's been, yeah. So
Yeah.
if you're considering,
Do it.
just do it. Honestly, don't. A lot of people say, "Oh, I need to wait for the right moment," or maybe this year isn't the best. don't even overthink it.
Yeah.
Just do it. I had 2 days to decide, and it
remember.
was the best decision of
Yeah.
my life.
Yeah. And it's not too late to get a student for this upcoming school year.
No, not at all. Like right now, we're placing families. So
Well, perfect. ASSE.com. This has been so much fun. Sylvia, I hope that you stay in touch.
Yeah.
Best of luck with school.
Thanks.
We're excited for you. We're proud of everything that you're accomplishing. And I know we do this every time, and it's corny. Is there anything you'd say to people watching?
I don't know. Yeah, like she said, if some family have the opportunity, like it's a great experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, for both, not just for the student, and it's a lifetime experience. Like we see, like
Yeah.
I'm here now, so
we have our matching tattoos.
Yeah, you got it. You can show the tattoo,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Point it this way, Sylvia.
So she actually designed them.
Oh, that's
well, I didn't, but there's like a I found more meanings, not just one. Like if you see, like it's the big flower hugging the other one.
Yeah.
So that's her and that's me. And then there's like the letter A
Yeah.
for Alisa.
Yeah.
And she has S.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that nice?
So yay.
See, so it is a lifetime experience. That's
It is.
so great. Well, Sylvia, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you
Thank
soon.
you.
Safe
Yeah.
travels,
Thank you.
fun
Thanks.
travels. All
Yeah,
right,
thanks.
all right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking ran a little long with Sylvia, but I appreciate Sylvia and Alisa for being on the show. If you want more information about ASSE.com or you want to contact someone to get involved with the International Exchange Program, feel free to contact me and I can get that information to you. And since we're talking about, and by the way, we're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm Frank Acom. This is Frankly Speaking. Thank you for joining us. We got a lot of comments. What did you think about J.D. Vance? What did you think about night 3 of the RNC? What do you think about Biden's chances of staying on the ticket in November? But since we had, and I mentioned sometimes there's going to be guests that are not on the topic necessarily of the day, but are still very important, like getting caught up on how great Sylvia's doing. Also, tomorrow we're going to find out about the Salvation Army. There's a big need here in Corning. I mentioned it on the program yesterday. If you want to take part in the campaign of kind of a summer, a July, Christmas in July kettle ringing campaign, just a kind of a fun, friendly competition. If you are a business or maybe an organization and you want to have that kettle all next week, just go ahead and give the Salvation Army a call at 607-216-4099, 607-216-4099. And you can sign up for that. We'll give you more information with that interview tomorrow. And one other update, since we're talking about fun guests that we've been having on the program. You remember Marlon and Ford from Texas? They just stopped in, everybody's new fan favorite. Well, I heard from their father, and he said that they are now complete. That was so much fun. The boys are beside themselves. I forgot to give you that update. Very excited about that interview. They had a blast. I don't know if I told you this part of the story, but as they were leaving the studio, they just stopped a random person on the street and said, "We were just on television." They love being a part of Frankly Speaking. All right, let's get to comments from viewers. Hey, great first hour of the show. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Next comment. Good morning, Frank. So how many times has Joe had COVID? That's a good question. Meaning Joe Biden, of course. The same COVID that he barked at us to get the shot so we wouldn't get sick. Boy, it's an interesting timing on this. So many people have said that this shows a weakness in Biden having to go back to the basement in Delaware because he has COVID, and Trump surviving an assassination attempt is out at the RNC every night. Another comment from a viewer. I find it interesting how the media is handling how Mr. Trump's rivals within the Republicans are now supporting him. In a country with a predominantly two-party mindset, why wouldn't these individuals support him now, especially given the history of his opponent? Great point. And this is the media. This goes to show you the media can't understand why anybody, Republican, Democrat, Independent, would ever support Trump because they're in such a bubble. So they are outraged that Nikki Haley and DeSantis and others. Now, they never really liked DeSantis, but Nikki Haley, they tried to tell us, was our only chance, right? They can't stand that she endorsed Trump, not understanding. They were endorsing Biden knowing his real serious health concerns. But they don't understand why somebody would support, as Nikki Haley said, I may not agree with Trump all the time, but he's better than the alternative, essentially. It just boils down to the fact they don't understand why Trump would get any votes. That's the media for you. Continuing. Even so, Nikki Haley made the remarks, you may not agree with Donald Trump's views, but the country needs him. Exactly. Thank you. Also, the powers to be are pushing for Michelle Obama to be the Democratic candidate. Why aren't we hearing them mention Barack Obama? Well, he couldn't be the candidate, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure the answer to that, but they are definitely pushing for Michelle. And finally, with Joe Biden being diagnosed with COVID-19, how many individuals whom he came in contact with before the diagnosis may now be infected? He could be starting his own pandemic. Thank you very much. Great comments coming in. Keep them coming in. What did you think last night? A lot of people energized by what is being described as a soul-stirring speech by J.D. Vance. We also talked about the new star of the Republican Party, Kay Trump, Donald Trump's granddaughter, who gave that, what they're saying is an unscheduled speech. What a remarkable job she did, as one viewer said. Any grandparent watching are super proud grandparents watching that, seeing that moving speech. Now, the DNC, as I mentioned, has slowed down Biden's nomination because there has been so much talk about him stepping down. We heard behind the scenes, but remember, they're not necessarily denying it. It's a non-denial denial. That Schumer, Pelosi, many others behind the scenes talking to Biden, saying it's time to step aside. Now, Adam Schiff became the 21st Democrat to call for Biden's ouster yesterday. That was somewhat breaking news. Again, I think it's more based on the number than any kind of power player scenario with Adam Schiff. He said Joe Biden has been one of the most consequential presidents in our nation's history. Consequential doesn't necessarily always have a good connotation, does it? Just curious. And his lifetime of service as a senator, a vice president, now as president, has made our country better. You know, I thought that was very effective with J.D. Vance yesterday, highlighting the fact that Biden had been in politics longer than J.D. Vance had been alive. J.D. Vance, just 39 years old. But I'll continue with what Adam Schiff had to say. But our nation is at a crossroads. A second Trump presidency will undermine the very foundation of our democracy. And I have a serious concern about whether the president can defeat Donald Trump in November. Now, Chuck Schumer told Biden it would be best to end his candidacy. That's what ABC News is reporting. Schumer forcefully made the case it would be better for Biden, better for the Democratic Party, and better for the country if he were to bow out, Jonathan Karl said. Karl said that there has been no denial from Schumer's camp. That is a very important point to this. Many not wanting to go out and forcefully say it, but not denying that he said it. Leader Schumer conveyed his views to his caucus, or of his caucus, what his caucus is believing. Hakeem Jeffries has made similar statements directly to the president, Karl added. And of course, we heard about Nancy Pelosi privately meeting with Biden, telling him he can't beat Trump in 2024, and that, according to the polls, he would ruin the Democrats' chances in the House. We are back to the point, and I know we joked about this with former Congressman Joe Sempolinski last week, that we're back to the point of constantly checking news, social media, to see if he were to resign, meaning, will we hear from these anonymous sources? Will Biden himself declare it? Many have said it would be much easier for the Democrat Party if he does it before the nomination. Now, some Democrats want kind of an open convention, which I believe they would have to change the rules and talk about chaos. You know, you don't notice the term chaos being used quite as much now as it was and as they do with Republicans, but definitely the Democrat Party in chaos. We're going to talk about that. We're also, because so many people are mentioning the COVID, Joy Reid comparing elderly Biden and his COVID recovery to that of Trump dodging an assassination attempt, folks. That's how, well, bad MSNBC is, but that's also how they're trying to do everything they can to shift the focus on this assassination attempt. Meaning, we've already heard from Axios, far left Axios, that some in the media world are saying, don't show that photo anymore. It's too effective. It's too good for Trump. It's too much good PR. It's almost propaganda for his campaign. So telling the media, who would never want to be friendly to Trump anyway, don't show that anymore. And I'm sure the media will be more than happy to oblige. But back to what Pelosi said, and I'm going to read your comments after the break. But Pelosi told President Biden in a private conversation that polling indicates he can't beat Trump and that it would really hurt the chances of winning the House in November. I guess Biden fought back on polling that he has within House. Biden reportedly pushed back, telling Pelosi that all polling he's seen has pointed to a successful re-election bid. One of the sources on the call described Biden as defensive. During the call, Pelosi recruited Mike Donilon, Biden's longtime advisor, on the line to talk through the disappointing data. But we're going to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking and weigh in on all of this and much more. We'll be back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you so much for joining us. We have so many comments coming in. I know I kind of went to that break abruptly. So I apologize. Here we go. Here are some comments. Is there any way of actually knowing if Biden has COVID? Isn't it more possible they're just saying that? So they are buying time to figure out what their next move is. They also said at the same time they are delaying the Democratic convention. I think there is a point there I'm not going to suggest he doesn't have COVID. I don't know that. But it does give him the opportunity to go back to the basement, get some rest, because he has been much busier schedule than we've seen in the last 3.5 years. Give him some rest and let them regroup. It's also weird that he gave an interview a few days before where he said that if medical doctors told him he couldn't run, he would step out. So not conspiratorial. I just think, if nothing else, it does buy them some time to kind of reassess and regroup. But I have no reason to not believe that he has COVID, because I think even if you think he doesn't have COVID, the optics of that are horrible. Even his own side, many are saying you see strength in Trump going to the convention after the assassination attempt, and then you see Biden going back to the basement because of COVID. So we're going to get to that too, because I know a lot of people want to discuss this in more serious terms. Next comment from a viewer. Love the interview. Yes, it's always good to hear from Sylvia. If you're new to the program, we almost started the program interviewing Sylvia, and we've seen her grow and become such a independent, strong woman. And so we appreciate her being on the show. And you can find out more at ASSE.com, international exchange student. And you can also find out more by contacting me, and I can get you in touch with anybody if you are interested. Next up. Did you hear it all on CBS that Biden wants to cap rent across the United States? Yes, I did see that. I apologize. I meant to mention that on the program yesterday, but we completely ran out of time. It's another move to, essentially buy votes. I mean, I don't know how else you can say it. So it's not a surprise. It's just like his attacks on the Supreme Court. There's a really interesting piece. I don't think we'll have an opportunity to get to it. But what the New York Post editorial board, well, we'll bring it up right now, saying Biden's devil's deal with the hard left is an attack on America and the Democratic Party and a gift to Trump. The first two shoes he dropped, a push for national rent control and a so-called Supreme Court reform package of term limits and an ethics code, are terrible ideas and flagrantly unconstitutional. Now, the New York Post editorial board continues, and I'm going to get to the other comments because we have more comments, but of course, rent control is a disastrous policy that, as Democratic Colorado Governor Jared Polis immediately warned, this kind of cap would lead to less affordable housing being built and substantially increased housing costs. His high court reforms, meanwhile, are an outright attack on an equal branch of the federal government, aimed squarely at subordinating the judges' independence from the political branches, an independence that has protected Americans' rights for 235 years. Sounds like an attack on our democracy to us, says the New York Post. Yes, from the group that continues to lecture about attacks on democracy. Until now, Biden has avoided any major support for the left's war on the court as an institution, but has become a cause célèbre on the left, which he now sees as his best hope to not lose the party's nomination for a second term. Yeah, this isn't about securing votes with the attack on the Supreme Court. It's securing the nomination. It's to ease the Democrats' mind, because if you recall, he even said, and I brought this up yesterday on the program, one of his campaign people said, well, this is something, because it won't get through before November, something he can fight for in the next 4 years. His other gambit, pushing for a soon as possible virtual roll call, but that has changed. Of course, it may not be Joe, but Hunter and Jill behind this strategy. They're practically his only top advisors at this point. He could at least read a script smoothly until now, but the NAACP mistake is only the latest teleprompter fail. Battle box for ballot box came on Sunday night. And when aides handed him a note, did you hear about this? On Saturday's Zoom with House Democrats, he read it out loud. They handed him a note, and he read out loud during the Zoom, "Stay positive, you are sounding defensive." And they tried to spin that in the media, saying, well, he was just having a little fun. At another point in that call, he angrily dissed the military record of Representative Jason Crow, an Army Ranger who earned the Bronze Star in his combat action in the Iraq invasion. Overall, reports on the call say he was rambling and even worse than during the debate. Plus, his live ABC and NBC interviews were both disasters. But I'll continue because I don't want to run too late. In short, the Bidens are crippling Democrats, boosting the GOP, and warring on democracy. It's the ultimate trifecta of selfishness. Okay, back to some comments from viewers. Ken wrote us a lengthy one. No problem, Ken. Let's go through it. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I have to say that the below things we hear look fishy in respect to the attempted assassination of President Trump. One, there was credible assassination threat from Iran. Yes, they even supposedly boosted security. Security should have been increased, but it wasn't. But don't they say that there was increase, just to show you how big of a disaster this was, that there was boosted security. Now, that's why the Secret Service director was essentially chased down by senators at the RNC, being yelled at. She has stayed defiant that she will not resign. Continuing. 3, the building that the gunman was on was relatively close to the event and is easily seen by Secret Service snipers. Yeah, 60 yards. And if you look at the map of the Butler family, I think it's Butler Family Fields, if you look at it, obviously that would be, at first glance, someplace that you would keep an eye on. 4, suspicious actions were noticed about an hour before the shooting and minutes before the shooting. People tried to sound the alarm of a man on the roof. Yes, they said they had saw someone with a rangefinder. And I don't know if you've watched the media coverage of this. I think many of you, especially since we have a big viewing population that are hunters, to listen to them describe with confusion what a rangefinder is and having to describe to their viewers what a rangefinder is kind of funny. That the media never heard of such a thing. But I'll continue. 5, the Secret Service said the local police were to watch the building, but the local police said they were only there for traffic control. 6, second after the president was shot, the Secret Service located, targeted, and eliminated the threat, almost like they knew where the threat was all along. And 7, is it possible that someone thought that the gunman was the Iranian threat and looked the other way until after the shots were fired? 8, proof that Iran was responsible for the shooting could help the Democrats out politically, letting them reinstate the sanctions that they shouldn't have removed in the first place and showing how tough the current administration is on threats to America. Thanks, Ken. I will say, and I understand what you're saying. You're not a conspiracy theorist. There's so many red flags in how this was handled that I can't remember who said it. But they said, you have to take care of it. We have to find information out about this person who did this. We have to start getting answers, or conspiracy theories are going to start to pop up. And no one wants that. And in this case, there are so many questions that have come up that there's no doubt the Secret Service director should resign. More comments coming in, but we got to take a break before I run too late. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Overlooking historic Market Street, broadcasting live from Corning in the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. So many great comments coming in. A couple quick announcements, if I could, for just a moment. As I said, tomorrow we're going to be talking about the Salvation Army. You won't want to miss that. But I want to highlight this because one of our friends to the show is involved. It's the Keuka Lake Players, proudly presenting Into the Woods Jr., directed by Sarah Love, music and lyrics by Stephen Sondheim, and book by James Lapine. It's at Haverling High School Auditorium, coming up starting tomorrow. And this is presented through special arrangement with Music Theater International. So I want to highlight that to you if you are looking for something to do this weekend. Also, another just quick announcement, and then we're going to get to comments. Congressman Nick Langworthy has announced $27,000 in federal grants going to the City of Elmira Fire Department for all of our friends in Elmira. This is what the congressman had to say. I'm proud to announce the FEMA grant for the City of Elmira Fire Department, which will provide needed resources to strengthen their firefighting capabilities and ensure the safety of our community. This funding will be used to purchase advanced equipment and implement essential training programs, ensuring our first responders are well equipped to handle emergencies efficiently. So I wanted to always get to the important local news when we can. Comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. I support term limits, and here would be my proposal. 5 2-year terms for Congress, 2 5-year terms for the Senate, and 2 5-year terms as president. That would be a maximum of 30 years. As to the increase in presidential years, it would allow them to be in office as the policies are coming into effect. Thank you very much. I've always been supportive of term limits, and I know we had this conversation not that long ago on the program, which was if there are term limits, and again, this is assuming you could ever convince someone to vote themselves out of a job. I think the only way you could get this in motion is if you said the people in Congress are grandfathered in, that they get to, if they can, extend past that, it's okay. But anybody new coming in would have those term limits put into effect. I think that may be your only hope. And the years are important here because we've talked about this in the past. I know former Congressman Joe Semplinsky talks about it, and I'm not going to paraphrase what he says. I'm going to say what I've learned through the years hearing people that are kind of anti term limits. And it's not that's what the vote's about. You can vote them out at any time. No, it's not that argument. The argument is you don't want the term limits, and I think you have good numbers here to the viewer. You don't want the term limits to be too small because if you do let's just use Congress, for instance. Your congressperson wouldn't have enough time to get into the Washington system. And I don't mean politics and corrupted by politics. I don't mean that at all. I just mean getting the ball working where you're working with constituents. You've got, certain trainings and things like that. It would get to the point that if they didn't have enough years, that it would be the kind of nameless, faceless bureaucrats behind the scenes that you don't vote for that would be doing the actual work of getting a bill in front of the new congressman, those type of things. So I don't want to get too far into this because we have so much to talk about, but I'd be more than happy next time the former congressman is on to talk to him about it. He has a very strong point on it. So Pelosi, they're saying, did call for Biden to step aside. We are hearing now, specifically from Jeffrey Katzenberg, a mega donor, that the money is drying up for Biden. The money is not going to be there. He supposedly told Biden that the road ahead to another term could be very difficult and that the money is drying up. And this comes off the heels somewhat of the op-ed from George Clooney. Now, they're saying it could be a new moment for Biden, and this is what's interesting about the media right now. And you could probably think to yourself, wait a minute. Some in the media may be pushing this, hoping that Biden hears and does step aside. There's others that are still trying to defend him because they don't want to seem too negative if he does decide to stay in. But according to Jeff Zeleny from CNN, one Democrat advisor says he's being receptive, meaning Biden is being receptive to this. Now, after testing positive for COVID-19, could this be a new moment for Biden? The private conversations with the Hill are continuing, the senior Democrat advisors told CNN, of course, on condition of anonymity. He's being receptive, not as defiant as he is publicly. He's gone from saying Kamala can't win to, do you think Kamala can win? It's still unclear where he's going to land, but he seems to be listening. Now, again, we tie him getting COVID. We tie in the speech that he gave not that long ago where he suggested if doctors told him to step aside, he would. I don't know, as to the one viewer's point, if this COVID diagnosis doesn't give him time. It definitely does give him time to go back to the campaigning of 2020 from the basement. I'm sure he'll probably do some interviews, maybe not, but his campaign will be, I'm sure, releasing numerous statements like the statement that we had earlier. That nice statement that the victims of crime, of illegal immigration, of fentanyl overdoses that spoke at the RNC where they lost loved ones, that they were just politicizing their loss, politicizing their loved one's death. We'll hear comments like that from the Biden campaign as he is safe at home in Delaware. But as I keep mentioning kind of highlighting that interview that he gave with BET News. He said, if I had some medical condition that emerged, if doctors came to me and said, you got this problem and that problem, he kind of trailed off, but that he would step aside. You know, the one thing that is, I think we've all found very fascinating, the debate was so bad. We know that. But you would have assumed going to favorable media outlets, giving speeches with teleprompters, those type of things, the press conference after the Trump assassination attempt, having the Oval Office address, these type of things, you would have thought he would have been better prepared or that it wouldn't have had as many gaffes. None of them have been what you can call a success. They've been a lot of trailing off and saying whatever. There's been a lot of lost thoughts, much like what we saw in the debate, just on smaller, lesser scales than the 90-minute debate. So we're going to talk more about this, but Biden is trying to salvage his campaign, says the same outlet that just said that he's being more receptive. And that's CNN. We'll talk about that. Keep those comments coming in. Keep those waves coming in. What did you think? I know we talked about it early on the program in the 6 o'clock hour, What did you think of J.D. Vance last night? I know many people that were commenting on the program excited about Vance. Many people excited but not knowing a lot about Vance. Many people saying, well, you know, I like this person maybe instead. Like one person saying yesterday, Dr. Carson. They were hoping for Dr. Carson, but giving J.D. Vance the benefit of the doubt, for lack of a better term. So what did you think last night as J.D. Vance introduced himself to the world? I'd love to hear from you on that. And what did you think the highlights of day number 3 were? Many people, myself included, may say that, well, I don't want to say the ultimate highlight, but seeing Trump's granddaughter and how I think touching that speech was and how nice that speech was, and to learn that it was unscheduled, I just thought was really, really moving and really nice. But there were so many very good speeches yesterday. So let me know what your thoughts are, and we're going to take that break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. You're watching Frankly Speaking, and I really do appreciate that. I'm your host, Frank Acom. So Biden is trying to salvage his campaign. Democrats say things are only going to get worse. Anyone who thinks this is over is a mistake, said one House Democrat. Another Democrat lawmaker told CNN that Biden's full court press in recent days has only exacerbated the panic inside the party. Yes, it seems to be crumbling around him. We learned that supposedly from anonymous sources, he is being more receptive than in the past. I've got a piece I'm going to bring up a little bit later on in the program, but before we run too late, I want to ask this question to you. Do you agree with this statement from Daniel McCarthy? And the statement is, don't be complacent, Republicans. You're falling into the Democratic trap. Keep that in mind. Let me know what you think. But Van Jones highlights the strength versus weakness after Trump survives an assassination attempt and Biden contracts COVID. Van Jones saying strength versus weakness is the picture. A bullet couldn't stop Trump. A virus just stopped Biden. I would agree with Van Jones. The optics of it, I hate that term, but the optics of it alone. Jones saying you've got the nominees for this party getting their rear ends kissed, meaning Vance and Trump, and having, you know, these great speeches. Biden's getting his butt kicked by his own party. The Democrats are coming apart. The Republicans are coming together. If at the end of the day, Biden stays in, think of how much damage has been done to him by his own party, which is not typical. This is rare. This is why we bring it up, because normally the Democrats are very good about rallying around each other. In this case, they're turning on Biden. So at the end of the day, if he decides not to back down, think of more damage was done by the Democrats to Biden than perhaps you could argue by the Trump campaign. It's very interesting to watch this because it's so rare. It's almost, to use a phrase that is way overused, unprecedented. Now, Joy Reid, I know I've been highlighting this all morning long. Joy Reid, who made sure to describe both Biden and Trump as elderly, talked about the assassination attempt. She said, and this is Joy Reid from MSNBC, quote, "These two men are both elderly. Donald Trump is an elderly man who, for whatever reason, was given 9 seconds to take an iconic photo op during an active shooter situation. Weird situation. We'll figure that out one day. So I don't know if she's pushing a conspiracy theory here. I will say that I think it's pretty despicable to call that a photo op. A photo op is short, of course, for photo opportunity. That, you know, you get a photo op with a celebrity. You get a photo op, you know, if you meet Trump, it's considered a photo op to get a photo with him. She's suggesting that as he defiantly lifts his fist in the air to show his supporters that he is okay and yells fight, that is nothing more than a photo op. She does have to admit it's iconic. That goes to show you how much they hate that photo. Back to Van Jones's point, the strength versus weakness idea. That's why we've heard from Axios that many in the media are saying don't show that photo anymore because it's quote unquote propaganda for the Trump campaign. That is PR, good PR, and heaven forbid the media ever give Trump good coverage for the Trump campaign. So there's so much to dissect in just one sentence from Joy Reid, isn't there? So kind of, I would say, pushing conspiracy theories here that for whatever reason, Trump was given 9 seconds to take an iconic photo op during an active shooter situation. Weird situation. We'll figure that out one day. If you look, I think, though, I will say, I think it was one of the failures, though I'm glad that we can at least have that picture, that historic picture, in the sense of it is so historic and shows how divided this country is right now, that iconic photo. But it is another failure, I think, of the Secret Service for not doing a better job of keeping him from doing that and surrounding him. But again, it goes to the point of the strength of Trump at that moment and his need to show his supporters that he was okay. But you can tell she's pushing some type of conspiracy theory without having the guts to say it out loud. But I'll continue because that's not even the worst part of what Joy Reid at MSNBC had to say. This current president of the United States is 81 years old and has COVID. Should he be fine in a couple of days? Doesn't that convey exactly the same thing? That he's strong enough, older than Trump, to have gotten something that used to really be fatal to people his age. So if he does find out, or if he does come find out of it and comes back and is able to do rallies, isn't that exactly the same? So not insinuating maybe there's something there. She is saying that the assassination attempt that Trump survived and the fact that he has been defiant and going to the RNC and showing his face and being and surviving is exactly the same as Biden getting COVID, and if he comes out of it, fine. Never mind, of course, there was a perpetrator that wanted to kill the president of the United States, or the former president of the United States, where in this case, Biden somehow contracted COVID. I don't even know how you can compare these two. I think it goes to show you how scared they are of, again, that iconic photo op, as she puts it. I think it also scares them how poorly Biden is doing, so she's grasping at straws. But she is saying that Trump surviving an assassination attempt and Biden, if he comes out of this fine, surviving COVID, that those are exactly the same thing. She then appeared to kind of double back on her comments a little later, saying, it's not exactly the same. So she goes from saying, isn't that exactly the same, to then saying, well, it's not exactly the same. It's not the same incident. It's an elderly man coming out of an illness. Yes, exactly right. Maybe that's something you want to think through what you're going to say before. I know you probably thought you had a shocking take there that was really going to get a lot of attention and maybe change the narrative. But of course, it just shows the bias and really the embarrassing bias. We got some fans out there. If we weren't on the air, I'd put them right on the air. So exactly. And that's 3 waves right there. So Joy Reid saying it is exactly the same thing that Biden has COVID as compared to the assassination attempt. What did you think of that statement? Now, just to show you about MSNBC, how crazy they are. MSNBC insiders, people behind the scenes, are accusing their own management, their chairman, Cesar Conde, of coddling Trump by pulling some hosts off the air after the assassination attempt. The benching decision was a clearly deliberate coddling of Trump and his allies, an attempt at currying favor with the Trump camp. There's a level of disgust in the company I haven't seen before. Yes, MSNBC is coddling Trump too much. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Wrong one. Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Here's to a comment from a viewer, a lot of comments. You're having too much fun today. I could not agree more. We're having a blast. We just had 2 fans, young fans. We're getting a demographic of young people. I like it. Walk by that I know have been wanting to see the studio for some time, so that's where the exciting wave was from. All right, next up. The Secret Service most likely whispered to President Trump they got him, meaning the shooter. Trump has an instinct to seize the moment. Well, he does definitely have that instinct, and that's exactly where that iconic photo op came from. Whether or not they whispered that, I have no idea. I will say, I think he did, no matter what, want to show his supporters he's okay. You know, it's like the football player that gets up after a major injury and the whole place goes crazy. He's a sports fan. He knows that his supporters want to know how he's doing. And so it leads to that. I know there's a lot of anger over that photo in the media. Continuing, I thought this is about J.D. Vance's speech last night. I thought J.D. seemed a bit awkward at the start, but ended strong. I'm not sold completely on him because for me, like Nikki Haley, something just seems disingenuous. Maybe because he was a self-proclaimed never-Trumper and has changed his views on many things. I do think that's why his wife's speech was very helpful and a great job by his wife, saying that he's very enthusiastic and open to listening to her point of view, kind of, you know, giving a reason to kind of, or having the opportunity to downplay exactly that concern. But I understand what you're saying, but downplaying that exact concern. I certainly hope he proves me wrong. We don't need another Pence. Thank you. And I love the comments coming in. Another comment, funny story from Ken. On the first day of the RNC, a woman recanted a story about her comments to her father that Trump was a racist. She said her father asked her to do her research and educate him on the racist things Trump has done in the past. She couldn't find any provable information on racist things Trump had done, and while doing her research, she was converted to support Trump. The funny part is, my daughter said Trump was a racist about 4 years ago, and I asked her to do the research and show me just one credible instance that would prove Trump was a racist. While she hasn't converted to being a Trump supporter to date, she has never been able to show me any proof, and believe me, if she could prove Dad wrong, she would in a heartbeat. That is a funny story. Thank you, Ken. Yeah, I think it's speeches like that. I think the RNC, Republican National Convention, but the Republican National Committee, I should say, has done a great job of the lineup of speakers. I think just like that unscheduled one by Trump's granddaughter yesterday. So effective. So I love that story. Thank you, Ken. Here, before we go to our last break to wrap things up for this edition, where I am having way too much fun. I have way too much fun every day on this program, just to be fair, though, in full disclosure. Daniel McCarthy says, don't be complacent, Republicans. You're falling into Democrats' traps. Donald Trump has a lot of things to celebrate this week, but a foregone conclusion in November isn't one of them. And I think this is an important message, and we're going to wrap up the show with it. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Comment from a viewer. Frankly, next, Joy Reid et al. Will be saying Trump put his WWE experience to work and bladed his own ear before he dropped to the ground. That the assassination attempt was theatrical. I have problems with that. Orchestrated. Vince McMahon smiles. I will say, and this is completely anecdotal, I started looking at social media. I'm not a big social media guy. I started looking at social media Saturday, and that actually came up. Now, it was anecdotal, some friend of a friend. So, hey guys, do you want to come in? You want to say hi? Yeah, here, let me take a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. All right, welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and I guess we do have a special Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program because we have two very special guests. Hi, guys. Oh, here we go. Let me get the right one up there. There we go.
Hi.
Hi. Move over just a little bit for me, would you? All right, perfect. And you're not Joe Barlow. We'll take that name off. Hold on real quick. We're doing this live on the fly. So I understand you're big fans of Frankly Speaking. Is that right? Biggest fans, we'll call you that. Is there anything you'd like to say before you go and we wrap up this show to everybody watching?
Not really.
Not really? That's fine.
This
Just
is fun.
This is fun. This is your TV debut. What do you think?
Yeah.
It's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good work if you can find it. All right. You got a future in it, okay? All right. Thanks for being on the show. Have a good summer. All right. All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Just wrapping things up. Thanks for doing that, guys. I really appreciate it. So the last thing, just before we go, Daniel McCarthy, again, saying that you can't be complacent if you're a Republican, that you're falling into the Democrat trap, meaning that Joe Biden, he's nothing if not tenacious, they say. And the president has a trick ready to turn Trump's latest triumph over an assassin's bullet into a political defeat. So you can find that full piece at the New York Post. But we are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking because I got a little bit of housekeeping. Thank you to our guests for coming on the show. Thank you also to Sylvia and Elisa for being on the show earlier in the 6 o'clock hour. You can find out more about the International Exchange Program at ASSE.com. That's ASSE.com. On tomorrow's broadcast, we're going to be talking with Angela from the Salvation Army of Corning. The Salvation Army of Corning, unfortunately, is in a big need this year due to the fundraising drive with the kettle event and Christmas not being as helpful as it normally is. So we're going to ask you to help the Salvation Army of Corning, who does so much for our community throughout the year. One of those events coming up, and we'll tell you more about it on tomorrow's program, is July 24th. It's going to be a little party for those that want to volunteer and sign up already for the Christmas bell ringing. Yes, I know it's hard to believe that we're already talking about that, but we've got to plan ahead so we can have a big year this year to help all of those at the Salvation Army. Also, what else housekeeping? We have Tim Marshall coming on the program, Emergency Services from Steuben County later in the week. Joe, our friend Joe Barlow, as you saw on the screen there for a moment, she's going to join us on Monday's show and tell us about the upcoming Summer Sing with the Crystal Chords. It's every Tuesday night in August, and they're, as always, going to provide a special song for us on the air on Monday's show. So if you have any last minute questions, comments, concerns, or criticisms, you see the number on the bottom of the screen. That is 24/7. Feel free to write at any time, and we'll try to do our best to read those comments on tomorrow's broadcast. And thank you to everybody who reached out this morning. A good amount of waves, a lot of great commentary back and forth. What did you think? We'll leave the door open for this question that you can comment anytime. What did you think of J.D. Vance's speech last night? What did you think of day 3? Of course, you can weigh in on tonight's broadcast live during the broadcast of the RNC, where Donald Trump will be giving that speech. We'll be talking about that on the program tomorrow as well. And also, do you think, with all of this push against Biden, as you have Pelosi calling for him to resign, Schumer, well, not denying that they said these things, do you think Biden, at the end of the day, when the smoke clears, will be the nominee come November? But that does it for us. Join us every weekday morning starting at 6 for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. I look forward to it already.